What up, my guys? Welcome to another show, man. It's Monday, NBA Talk with J Money and the Shark. You ready to get to some cash, man? January 9th, man. Let's get straight to it. What's up with you, Shark? Everything cool with you, my guy?
Absolutely taking a breath. As you mentioned, a beautiful Monday morning. It is January 9th, 2023. The background speaks for itself. The energy is very real. Small card today, but a lot of angles to discuss. I think very interesting ball games on tonight's slate. Some officials dropping. J Money lead the way, and let's get in there.
It's definitely some interesting games. There's always some interesting games to talk about as well. Obviously, we're trying to get on the right side of these bets, though, as well. First game up here, man. It's all business here on the show. We're going to the streets of Washington, D.C. here. We have the Wizards laying a point and a half at the house versus the Pelicans in this one, Shark. They do have the major rest advantage. Pelicans somewhat dropping off a cliff, man. Lost 4 of the last 5. Somewhat up against top-tier teams, though. You could argue that the Wizards are not a top-tier team. They have won 5 straight. Now they've dropped 2 straight. Major rest advantage. I feel like that's the only reason why they're favored here, though. Do you think the Pelicans can bring that show on the road, or do you think they continue struggling here, my guy?
Yeah, I think there's actually a ton of reasons as to why they're favored. If you really go through this, and we'll talk about it. I got a ton of notes here, and there's a lot of angles on both games. But as you mentioned, New Orleans Pelicans have been the 1 seed in the West for a period of time. They've flirted. They've come back and forth. They've clustered left, right, and center throughout the entire season. Right now, they are in a bit of a downward play, and they are 1-4 straight up last 5. But I think situationally, we really have to look at how they've functioned at the East this year. They are 3-3 ATS at the East, but going game by game, those wins, in my opinion, are not very impressive. You have to go back to the opener against Brooklyn, a blowout win, a game we did have correct on that day in October. But everybody remembers Brooklyn before the Jacques Vaughn transition point was absolutely horrendous in their home gym. So that was much more on Brooklyn being useless. Then they hammered Charlotte, who we know has been awful all year, and they did win a game and cover in Chicago, who's also been lackluster playing at home against the West. Who has not been lackluster at home against the West? The Washington Wizards. And you really start to go through their schedule at home. They've played a big schedule at home against the West. They're 5-3 ATS at home against the West. And I think very impressively, they are 2-0 ATS within the Southwest. Outright win against Dallas, 113-105. And a very specific corollary spot, outright win against Memphis on a -1.5, the same exact figure. Going back to New Orleans for a half second, New Orleans has played 2 games at the Southeast. I think the line is telling us a good story here. As a favorite, they are 1-0 ATS. At Charlotte, we had that correctly in October as well. 124-112 as a -6.5. Slightly later on, the only time they were a dog in this environment, similar line, -1, 1.5 Atlanta. Atlanta did win the game in overtime, 124-121. Final point here as I bring the buy hat for the first time in the history of this broadcast, Jay. Just got this one, and we love to see it. Washington at home as a small favorite is 2-1 ATS versus the West. As I mentioned, 102-92 against Memphis, win and cover. More specifically, off a road loss against Minnesota on a Monday night, I should add, win 142-127. And the only loss in this cluster was a Sunday home game against the Lakers, which was a brutal travel spot for the Wizards. They had had a couple road games, came home for one, going back on the road. I'll throw it back to you for some comments. We're looking with major significance here.
Yeah, me personally, I was looking at Pelicans early in this one. They've dropped the last couple games. Top competition at Memphis, at Philly, at home versus Brooklyn, which are all three top tier teams. And then the Mavs as well in a horrible spot. So, like I say, they do. This is third game in 4 nights, 4th and 6. I wouldn't be surprised if Wizards got there early. This is their first game back at the house off a 4 game road trip. Like I say, after dropping the past couple, you get smacked by 17 versus OKC. That really kind of tells you the direction that the Wizards are going, in my opinion. I could only look towards the Pelicans early here. I'll be honest, I do think the full game is a bit of a toss-up, but I'd lean Pelicans early here. Usually what we see when teams come home off their road trip as well, they come out really sluggish as well. Like I say, this Pelicans team, the defense is top tier. The offense is a little bit, they're starting to miss Zion a little bit, but the defense is absolute top tier. And what the Washington Wizards like to do, they like to run and gun and score a bunch of points versus teams that don't like to play defense. That's not the Pelicans here. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them get back on track, even that they're at the rest advantage. But I'd be looking at Pelicans in the first quarter, possibly first half as well. That's the only way that I could look at this game, my guys. So over here to the next game, man. Let's get to the streets of New York here. We got the Knicks here, the Knickerbockers, getting a point here at the house versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Shark, this line was at -2.5 last night, down to 1 point here, my guy. We know the Bucks coming off that horrible game versus the Hornets. Do you think that game is very indicative of how the Bucks, the state of the Bucks right now, my guy?
I do. On a suddenly not so casual, my favorite Monday, January 9th, 2023, the buy hat is engaged. Jay mentioned it. This is getting steamed down, and I think for very good reason. You're looking at a Milwaukee team that purely is not playing good basketball and who has not been playing good basketball sustainably since early December. This team is 6-8 straight up in that period of time of 14 ball games. They're also on the road 1-6 last 7, I believe, as I'm going through my notes here. I usually don't have notes, and I think I'm better off without notes. But let me pull up this game. Excuse me, guys. And I think a key point, Jab, was going through Milwaukee off of home losses, I should say. Mm-hmm. There's only been one time this entire calendar year they lost a home game and went on the road, because they've obviously been great in their home gym. That only time was a game you had correctly. It was an outright loss to the Lakers. Then they went on the road at the East at Charlotte and did not cover. Very specific environment here. And as I was going through it, Milwaukee is 1-6 ATS last 7 on the road. They're also 1-5 ATS last 6 at the East on the road. They're just hitting a bit of a wall. Obviously, Chris Middleton came back briefly. He's no longer there. I think the buy element that people want off a dud against Charlotte is not very real here. And we start to go through the matchup in a little more detail. This is a 2x revenge game for the Knicks this season. This is a 5x revenge for the Knicks going back to last year. And the game is getting closer, and the line is telling you the same story. Going through those 5 environments, Milwaukee won those games by 12, 15, 15, 11, 6. Now we're at 2.5, and the line's coming down to 1.5. And when you really start to go through the Knicks in this double revenge game, the Knicks are actually 0-3 ATS the last 3 home games against the East. But again, qualifier stuff here. Outright loss to Toronto. Why? Because the Knicks were on a 3rd and 4 back-to-back. They had just hammered the Dubs the previous night. So it was a letdown fatigue spot for the Knicks. Mm-hmm. Then Chicago got them. Chicago was in a double revenge game there. And then Philadelphia got them. Philadelphia was in a revenge game here. So now you get the 2x revenge game. You get a great line number. And one final point, Jay. I want to go through the box score of the previous game at Madison Square Garden. Milwaukee was laying 5.5 points. They did cover the game by a hook, 109-103. If you go through this box score, the Knicks dominated the box score. The Knicks had 100 shots versus 90. They had more rebounds, more offensive rebounds, 8 more points in the paint, 8 more second chance points, 3 more fast break points, and they had more fouls in the game. Refs gave a little advantage to Milwaukee. And final point here before I throw it back to you. We all know the Knicks are volatile with the 3. The Knicks didn't cover that game by a half point. They shot 6 for 30 from the 3-point line. I think that improves tonight. I think New York gets off the 5x schneid here and wins the game outright. I'm on it officially overnight at a different number. We're dropping it now at +1.5 official. Jay?
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off, man. Obviously, the Bucks are really struggling on the road here. I could only look towards like I say, the Knicks full game. I definitely think they get it there, Shark. I do lean toward the Bucks in the full first quarter, though. They came out and gave up 51 points to the Hornets in the first quarter of their last game. And the next game as well, when they did come off that loss versus the Lakers at the house, they did come back to back versus the Hornets. Come out there and smack them first quarter, first half. Obviously, it's a lot different team. I don't like using corollaries with a horrible team like the Hornets, but with the way that the Bucks came out so bad, first quarter 51, I guarantee you, Giannis and the boys tell them we at least got to come out with a better effort. That doesn't mean that they'll win the game, but at least for the first quarter, I could only look towards the Bucks with a bounce back spot going over the road, and they like balling out in Madison Square Garden as well. RJ Barrett is possibly black, and to be honest with you, that could be good for the Knicks long term, but it would probably be bad for them first quarter, guys. Remember, I tell you, the star player comes back into the lineup. It's probably good. They're probably going to throw him into the starting lineup as well. Could mess up the chemistry or whatever. But first quarter, Bucks. That's the only way that I'm looking at this game, Shark. I do agree. Full game though, Knicks could definitely get them there. They're only 3 wins apart as well, so they could really try to move up the standings here on this Bucks. This Bucks team is not good on the road. I do think they got something going on over there. So regards to that, but I would lean towards the Bucks in the first quarter of this one, my guys. That's my top play on this game. Bucks in the first quarter. It's the only way that I could look. Let's go over here to the streets of Boston here, Char. We got the Celtics laying 8 points. This line was at 8.5. It's down to 8 now. Celtics kind of looking not so good, right, Char? They kind of peaked too early in this season. Now they're kind of started going through that middle part of the season, kind of coasting through. Come home here off that road trip, laying 8 points here. The Bulls obviously have covered 3 straight. They're 3-0 ATS versus them this year, but I must say the line is coming up to the Celtics. I'm not sure what to do with this game, man, especially with the Bulls. You can get whatever you want inside the paint, but the whole thing with the Celtics is sometimes they just shoot all three. So it's tough because you never really know what you're going to get from the Celtics. Are they going to get the mentality of let's go and smoke these guys, or let's kind of just go out there BSing around? I really don't think Mazzulla is hyping his team up from game to game. They have to have like a major revenge spot, which they do have here. But what do you think about this game? You think the Celtics come out here very focused in this one?
My initial lead in this game was Boston early. It would be the first quarter. Obviously, you go through the road trip that just happened. They played 2 dud games, and they played them both in very specific environments at Oklahoma City and at the Spurs on a early tip time. Neither were very impressive. So theoretically, coming home off of that unimpressive win, non-cover against the Spurs, you would think come out well against a team, Chicago, as you mentioned, who is 3-0 ATS this year and has won 2 consecutive ball games against this team. This is definitely a turn-up spot for Boston. And we had suggested this when we discussed the Spurs game going back a couple days ago. I thought they might let down to the Spurs and then turn up here. I think the best look in the game is probably the first quarter. I'm not on it officially, though, because I started going through Chicago on the road at the East. Chicago on the road at the East has been great, and they've been very good early. Of all the games they've played recently, the only game they did not cover the first quarter was the game they did win outright, 126-112 in Philadelphia. And it's just a tough fate of Chicago right now. Chicago really did bottom out about 15 ball games ago. They're 8-3 straight up last 11. They're also 5-1 ATS last 6 at the East. And the only non-cover in that sequence, Jay, you remember this. You were talking about it on Twitter. It was the back door by the Cleveland Cavaliers the night that Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points, and the Cavaliers somehow covered the spread by 11 in overtime. It was disgusting. That all being said, when you look at this game is almost identical from a statistical point to the Lakers-Denver game. It's the same number. It's the same double revenge. It's at home. It is almost a mirror of itself. And we're going to talk about that game. My take on that game is very similar. I think Boston early is best, but again, Chicago has been very good early on the road. I just can't get there. And the final point, Jay, that line in Chicago was Boston -5.5. The 3-point gap is the stock gap. It's the sharp gap. It's 8.5 here. This is a toss line at the highest level. If you're betting this game ATS, go down to the casino and shoot some dice instead.
Yeah, no, it's a tough game for you, man. Bulls 7-2-1 against the spread. Last 10 games, they're 3-0 straight up and against the spread last three. Me personally, like when teams come home off their road trip, what I've seen, every team isn't the same. But when I'm watching the games, it's usually they come out lethargic early. In my opinion, it's not that they can't find it late, but the main spot, it seems like when they come out slow and not full strength is early in the game. But like I say, every team is different, right? That's why you have to follow the patterns. But coming home off this road trip, I know that they have revenge versus the Bulls. It's too high of a line for me here as well. They got, I wish they had the Nets on deck, but they got New Orleans and then the Nets on deck. But this Celtics team is just really all over the place mentally, man. I'll keep saying it. I'm not sure if Missoula is really hyping this team up. I think this is all on the players here. It's all on the, whenever they ball out, it's usually on the players. They having a bad game, it's the players. Missoula is not really that type of guy, man, with the strong voice. It's like, hey guys, come on, y'all BSing around, man. He's too soft-spoken in my opinion, man. So we'll see if that comes to bite them at some point. Like I say, the Bulls with them 3-0 ATS so far this season have shown that they can match up with mainly Levine and DeRozan. I'll tell you, Vucevic, he's a matchup nightmare. He can't match up with these guys. If they knew best, they would drive into the paint literally every single time. As long as Vucevic is out there, they should have 70 points in the paint. It's just the Celtics really try to get into winning the 3-point, man, jacking up a bunch of threes. And if they're making them, that's all they're gonna do, man. They're really one of the most variant teams in the league, guys. And they're hitting their threes, they can smack you by 30 points. When they're missing them, they can lose by 10, 15 points, man. It's very possible, man. I'd still lean Bulls there, but it's not something that I bet, guys. Let's go over here to the streets of Memphis here, man. We got the Grizzlies laying 11.5 points here. You know, you're probably gonna get John Morant, Adams back in this game, and Bane is probably not gonna play. It's not that I don't think they've totally ruled him out from playing back-to-backs yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they still kind of, you know what I'm saying, bring them on slowly. They know that they could beat this Spurs team without Bane, but it will mess up their offense. Low-key, the Spurs quietly 5-1 against the spread last 6 games, even though they're 2-4 straight up. Those are the things that you want to look for, in my opinion, because you look at their record, they're horrible, but they're starting to play a little bit better basketball. I like the Spurs here, plus 11.5. I feel like if they're going to cover one of these games, Shark versus the Grizzlies, it's going to be this one while you're catching them on the back-to-back as well. I think they'll play them close this game. Next game, they'll get smoked by the Grizzlies, in my opinion. But I think this is your best chance to try to cover one of these games. If not win one, I don't think they'll win, but definitely keep it within double digits. I'm taking the Spurs here, plus 11.5. Ugly ass play, guys, in the chat. If you don't like it, I always say you don't have to take it. This is something that I'm riding with. I'm taking Spurs plus 11.5. I think they keep it within 7-8 points, and I also think they get Keldon Johnson back today as well. Shark, how you looking at this game, my brother?
I didn't really go into detail on this game. As you mentioned, this game is fairly backwood. I do think a very noteworthy point is early season, these two teams did play in San Antonio. Memphis did not cover the spread. I had Memphis that particular day for the loss. They were laying 6.5 points. They covered the first half and they kind of let down in the third, pushed back. They just never got to margin, and they did win the game by 2 and not cover the 6.5. So obviously this line is a Grizzlies line. I'm not sure where the motivation necessarily is coming. I was looking at a couple trends here, and everybody that follows me knows I love the Memphis Grizzlies. I love them as professional basketball players and human beings. I think that they're swagged out, they're ballers, and they play incredible on-court ball. And as I mentioned, 4 deep here, 4 all-star caliber players under 25. This team has championship visions, and it's very realistic in the near future, in my opinion. I think this team will win 2 to 3 titles with this group, if I'm being perfectly honest. Staying with that, I think Jay might not like that comment, but
honestly, I'm looking at the chat, to be honest with you. The Grizzlies are top tier, my guy. Trust me, they're top fucking tier. John Morant is going to be one of the new faces of the NBA. I agree. I'm not sure about 3, but they're definitely going to give 1 or 2 this for them. It might get 3. Mike, come on, Shark, you sound like LeBron over there. 3, 4, 5. No, I'm messing with you, man. But no, there's some absolute ballers, and I love their young core, and I love the coach as well, Shark. But what were you saying?
Yeah, and I do think this team has shown significant trends early at home. And if you go back to the last 2 home games, they actually didn't cover either first quarter. They got backdoored last night by Utah in the first quarter. They're up pretty significantly throughout the first quarter. They're up 19-12. They're up 23-18. And they had a couple, I'd say not necessarily sketchy, but questionable roster moves by Jenkins. He pulled the starters at the 250 mark of the first quarter. I'm not sure how regular that is. And the backups came in there and they were not very good. And Utah did backdoor the first quarter spread. The same thing happened in the previous game where I had first quarter, first half, and they just melted off the first quarter with a late 3 against in Orlando. This team loves to come out. And as I mentioned, it's mentality. They love playing with each other. And, we talked about this the other night. When you find young teams, Atlanta is the good example of a team that is the polar opposite to Memphis. Atlanta has a young core, and the guys don't like playing with each other, and they put a really flat product on the court. Memphis is the polar opposite. They love playing with each other. They hang out off the court. They're constantly retweeting each other, showing positive energy to each other. I think this team just has incredible camaraderie, and that's why they come out so well. They love showing up in the locker room. They love the pregame. They love their crowd, and they love coming out. And I think off of a couple back doors against where they did have the energy early, but they just got backdoored, which is variance, not effort. I do think Memphis might come out here again in the first quarter tonight and actually cover it. And obviously San Antonio coming off of a cover early against Boston, going on the road. And one final point as to the early comment about the Grizzlies here. They aren't a back-to-back. So theoretically, you want to come out and set the tone and then maybe melt it late, as you mentioned, at the 11.5 figure. I think Memphis early is my best look in the game. I'm kind of talking myself into it, and everybody who's following this knows how much I love the damn Grizzlies. So I might get there early, but I have no comment on the game line.
Exactly. Yeah, early would be the spot for the Grizzlies, in my opinion. They ball out at the house, guys. Like I say, people that don't like the Spurs, you don't have to take this. There's something I'll be taking. I talked about it last night as well. I have a few angles on the Spurs. You really could cash the next 3 games with them if I nail it down right. So in theory, they should cover this one and drop the next one, in my opinion. Nothing's guaranteed, but this 11.5 figure is inflated, in my opinion. The Spurs are I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but I mean, I know it was at the house as well, but this team has been teetering on a win versus the Grizzlies. For whatever reason, they played them really well. I know the last few at the house, they've dropped them by 13, but the way that they've played them the last couple, and especially the one this year, taking them to overtime, playing a super close game, guys coming in and out of lineup, a lot of funky situations. Another key point as well. I mean, it may not even be a key point. It could just be me, but Trey Jones, his brother, he is playing up against his brother, Tyus Jones here. So he will have some extra incentive here. Would be really nice to get Keldon Johnson's back as well. Bane could end up playing. I do fully believe Miranda's coming back. So maybe you can wait on the final lineups here, maybe get a better line. But I'll be taking the Spurs plus 11.5 right after this show, my guys. It's up to you. If you want to ride with it, let's cash. If you don't like it, you don't have to fucking play it, guys. Go over here to the streets of Denver here, guys. My streets. You got the Nuggets here. Land 10 points here, man. I might have to go get some spicy nuggets here today, man. The Lakers have beaten these guys 2 times already this year. Obviously, the Lakers are getting hot right now, and I know a lot of people don't really want to bet against them, but this Nuggets team is top tier. Don't be a bit surprised to see if they're in the finals this year. They found them a couple of defenders over there in KCP and Bruce Brown, and it's totally changed the team. Now Aaron Gordon act like he want to play some defense now. Gordon is playing on an absolute different level right now. Jokic is playing on a different level. You got KCP knocking down threes and shit. You got Murray back in there. This team is ready to go, Sharp. I think they're about to smack the Lakers back to mediocrity here, Sharp. What are we doing in this? I see a trifecta spot coming from the Nuggets here, Sharp.
Yeah, I do think, and I'm not official on this yet, of course, throughout the day, I will be adding plays potentially on Twitter. I do think Denver early is the best access point of this game. And as you mentioned, Denver in a 2x revenge game, they have gotten, I would say, fairly hammered twice in crypto.com, going back to the previous 2 matchups, 121-110 LA and 126-108 LA. And as I mentioned, this is very similar to Boston in a 2x revenge game on the same line number against the opponent. This is the same thing. And you start going through it. We talked about this with certain teams, and the Lakers are the best example of a team where you can't really look at the first 15 games of the season. It doesn't really matter. They started 2-10 straight up. Everybody in the media was calling them every name in the book. And of course, now Skip Bayless is apologizing to LeBron and kissing his ass, which is outrageous that he thinks he can come back after 20 years and start being nice, because you can't do that in this life. But the Lakers are 17-11 since. And in this Western Conference, which we've discussed numerous times, which is very parity driven, where there's not a lot of separation in the playoff race, 1 down all the way down through 12, this team is pretty competent. And again, Jay, you were just talking about this with the Celtics. The Lakers are also very, very dependent on their shooting percentage. I lost a wager the other night where I had Sacramento minus 8.5. And the only reason the Lakers covered that is because they shot 61% from the field over the entire game. I mean, this is just like historical heat check stuff. And that's what you run into in contemporary basketball, because these teams don't play in the paint really. It's not a slow down pace. It's not really an effort cap ever. It's shooting percentage volatility that can really get you. I think Denver's 100% the correct side here. And I think when you look at the first quarter specifically, Denver's coming off of a lackluster first quarter against Cleveland, which we did suggest the other night it would be a Cleveland early spot. This is where you want to buy low on a team who is great first quarter at home. They're 4-0 ATS first quarter at home in their last 4 against the West. Very impressive stuff. Blowout against Memphis, cover against Portland, cover against Phoenix, and another blowout against the Clippers. I'm not on it yet, but I do think I will probably be adding something early with Denver this afternoon.
Yeah, I like Denver first quarter, first half. I think they get the full game as well, man. Excuse me. And it's with being altitude as well. Don't be surprised if the old ass squad run out of gas as well, man. I know they're balling right now. This is not the Sacramento Kings. And what happened in their game, Shark, they got whatever they wanted inside the paint versus King. Man, some of these guys really got to try to get them a real center in there. It's nice to have off offense, but they don't think about defense whatsoever, man. But regardless, Sabonis is almost basically like the equal to a Vucevic over there. But regardless of that, man, I think the Nuggets with the double revenge here. Remember this, Shark, when the Lakers had that Mickey Mouse ring in the bubble as well. The teams that they beat, they always going to have something against them. They know that was really swayed toward the Lakers as well, and I think they're always going to have revenge for this shit, particularly at the house as well. You see the Heat always want to smack up the Lakers, not the most previous time, obviously, but they kind of let down without LeBron. But regardless of it, teams like the Heat, the Nuggets as well, I always feel like they'll remember those days in the bubble, man. I think they want to try to come out here and smack this team. They probably looked and see the success that the Lakers have been having as well. I think I'm taking trifecta spot here, bro. I fully believe I have this as a 15-point win by the Nuggets here. I gotta have to take the full game. I like the first quarter -3.5. I like the first half -6, and it was at 8.5 last night, coming up to 10. That's with LeBron being probable. I think the Nuggets gonna smoke them here. A trifecta spot. I haven't been to Wendy's in forever, but this is a spicy Nuggets trifecta spot for the Nuggets, in my opinion, guys. So go over here. Last game up here, so I'll let you know how I'm looking at this game, man. We got the Kings here, laying 5.5 points versus the Magic. Magic came out on the West Coast and balled out versus the Warriors. My guy Shark card throwing correctly. There was an 8:30 Eastern start. This is a 10 p.m. Eastern start. The latest game that the Magic have played all year. I think it's going to be a late night sleepy spot. What I want to do here, I want to take Kings in the first quarter with the spread, and I want to take the Magic team total under. I think obviously Magic can get some easy baskets in the inside, but when you have the coach calling out the team on the defense, right? I don't think that they'll be able to do it full game wise, but at least for a quarter, I think they'll come out with their heads on fire, flying around on the defensive end. And I think the Magic have a little bit of an offensive letdown as well. I've been literally thinking about this shit all yesterday and all night, man. My spots in this game, and it seems funky, but Kings in the first quarter and Magic team total under in the first quarter. I think that they're correlated. Either going 2-0 or they're going 0-2. It's that simple. But how you looking at this game, Shard? Do you think the Magic will have any type of letdown here?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I really didn't have a good feel for this game. Obviously Sacramento did go on the road and win in Orlando earlier this year. It was really tight. It was 126-123 in overtime. That line that day hovered anywhere from 1 to 3 to 3.5. So basically, depending on what CLV you got on that line, you either won, lost, or pushed. And again, I think if we just look at that line on the road being -3, coming home right around -6, that is very, very well averaged. And I just don't know what to make of the Magic, if I'm being honest, Jay. The first quarter, I think, definitely is a very unique environment. So, and this is what we talk about all the time on this show. You can cap a quarter, and it has literally nothing to do with the full game cap. So I think the first quarter stands for itself, and I don't disagree. But I do think the Magic are just a tough read on the road. Obviously, they did just beat the Dubs, but, young teams like this with the Magic, I mean, I think this team is deep, upstart, and well-coached. And I think they connect pretty well. Revenge game for them on the road at the Kings. Kings have not been great against the East on inflated numbers. I do remember they didn't cover against Detroit at home. It was a slightly higher figure, but regardless, it's a lottery team with uninspiring players theoretically. I don't know. I obviously won't. I can't debate you on the first quarter. I think that's an absolute sharp look. I do think for the game though that the Magic might keep this close. And I think again, small sample that we've only seen one game with the Magic playing on the West Coast this year. I don't know what to make of it. Free play, free play, I have nothing. I just don't know what to make of this game.
And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think that it's going to come to bite them in their ass. When you get this far in the season and you hadn't even played, this is only your second game on the far west coast, not just the middle of the country, going to Dallas, San Antonio. We're talking about far west coast, and this is an Orlando team. This is literally the other side of the country playing their latest game of the season, guys. These type of things take some getting used to. I would be a bit surprised to even see the Kings get this full game as well. This game is basically going to end like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, body clock wise for the Magic, in my opinion, guys. So nobody looks at those type of things, but I think all the way up for the preparation, everything's going to be thrown off here. And when you go face Golden State, the defending champs, you're going to get up for that game. Young players, they circle those type of games. Bankero, guys like that, when this is their first year in the league, they can't wait to go over there in the Chase Center and ball out. So that's a huge high. Let's just say this: no one's circling the Sacramento Kings on their calendar. I know that they're playing a lot better now, but we're just talking about literally like you looking ahead to games. I just don't see the Magic really looking ahead to the game. I know that they have revenge, but to start this game, I do think the Kings come out with some. This is their third straight home game as well, so don't be surprised if they're knocking down some shots, getting comfortable in their home gym. But I really think the top plays this game: Kings first quarter spread. I think they get there on the team total over on the first quarter as well, and I think the team total under for the Magic. I really think all three of those plays are correlated as well, my guys. So I'm going to take it. I'm taking Kings spread in the first quarter. I'm going with what I know, and I'm taking the Magic team total under as well in the first quarter for that game. And I also still lean Kings for the full game. They don't have a ton of defense inside, but it's on the perimeter players to not even let them get inside the paint, guys. You look at the Thunder. This team, they don't have any paint protection, but they still play really good defense because the perimeter defenders like actually give a damn and don't even want to let you get to the paint, guys. So I at least believe to start this game, the Kings will play some top tier defense, guys. Let's get over here to some picks, Shark. Talk about some shirts as well, my brother. What you liking on tonight's card? Let's get this cash.
Two top plays I'm dropping right now. I didn't make it official before. We're going to make it official. Washington Wizards at -1. A lot going on in that game. Situational analysis. As I didn't mention it when I was talking about it before, but the last time New Orleans did lose a divisional game, which they just did at Dallas, they went on the road at the East at Philadelphia. Philadelphia line number. Philadelphia did get them. This is the same exact spot. It's a real sandwich spot for New Orleans. They got to play at Washington off of the non-cover, and then have a revenge game at Boston next. And Washington has performed very well at home against the Southwest, 2-0 ATS and 2-1 ATS against the West at a -1.5 figure. And we're taking the New York Knicks at +1.5 at home, double revenge. One thing I didn't mention before that I do want to mention, the only time this year New York has lost a home game to an Eastern opponent and had a revenge game again in Madison Square Garden, it was against Atlanta. Atlanta beat them 112-99 early. They got a second game at MSG, and they hammered Atlanta 113-89. And Milwaukee, maybe not coincidentally, has a look-ahead game to a double revenge game for Milwaukee in Atlanta on national TV on Wednesday night. All boxes checked. This is a collaboration play with the Philly Sharp. I want to give him a shout. Great dude, great capper. Follow him on Twitter. And, of course, Jay Money, the legend himself, firing off a beautiful show on a suddenly not so casual, my favorite Monday. Looking at Denver with significance early. Jay Money, close them out and let's dominate.
Yeah, let's get some cash today, my guys. This is what I'm looking at, man. It's the only thing I can look at. Pelicans first quarter, Bucks in the first quarter. I would lean Bulls, but I stayed off of it. I'm taking the San Antonio Spurs plus 11.5. I'm taking the Denver Nuggets in the first quarter -3.5. First half -6. Full game -9.5. And I'm also taking the Sacramento Kings in the first quarter spread -2. And I'm taking the Magic team total under in the first quarter under 229.5. Guys, we appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. If you'd like to get a shirt, use promo code We Will Win over there at the site, jmoneyismoney.com for 50% off. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your time as well. Hope you guys have a great day, man. Let's get this cash, man. We are out. We back tomorrow. I'm back here in 2 hours, 1 p.m. Eastern, guys. Check out the show with my guy, Rob Vino, as well. Like I say, man, let's get this cash. We out, man. We will win.